Several Disgaea games over the years, and how many have I actually finished? Well, that's exactly 0. And then Disgaea Mayhem replaced the strategy grid with action combat in that classic Muso style, and apparently that was all it took. So did Disgaea Mayhem finally become the first game in the series I actually finished? Well, let's find out. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dollar Games, and today we're going to be talking about Disgaea Mayhem, a new action RPG spin-off that takes the ridiculous characters, that massive level grinding, and the netherworld chaos of Disgaea and puts you directly in control of the combat versus what people are generally used to with the series. Now, before we get started though, a huge thank you to NIS America for sending me the early code for review. Now, I've dabbled in Disgaea games before, but I've never really finished one. I usually enjoy the humor and the characters, but eventually, I just fall off once I realize how much time I need to pour into the grind to truly beat the game. Now, Disgaea Mayhem immediately caught my attention because it takes a very different approach. Instead of commanding an entire team across a tactical grid, you play as the mercenary NA, and he's cutting through large groups of enemies using multiple weapon types. You can still level into the thousands, you can improve your equipment through the item world, and reincarnate for some stronger stats, but this time, all of that progression feeds into what you would expect from a Muso game, much like Dynasty Warriors or the mini IP spin-offs that we've been seeing. That change finally gave me the push I needed to stick with a Disgaea game from the beginning to the end, and yeah, I have a lot to talk about. Let's start with the story, because Disgaea Mayhem wastes very little time establishing just how ridiculous this adventure is going to be, which I'm sure is exactly what longtime fans expect when jumping into a Disgaea game. Now, you play as NA, an experienced mercenary who makes his living taking dangerous jobs while hiding his ooey gooey soft flawn center behind a hard exterior. Since he's a mercenary, he's eventually summoned to the netherworld by its newly crowned overlord, Tichelle. Tichelle recently inherited the throne following the death of her father, but that transition has not exactly gone smoothly. Several of her father's most powerful former vassals have started a rebellion, leaving her authority over the netherworld hanging by a thread. As if losing control of her kingdom was not bad enough, someone has also stolen the pristine Gleam Flawn, a legendary dessert created by her late father. Also, did you notice how I described NA as having a soft flawn center earlier? And now the entire story revolves around flawn? That's foreshadowing.
What the fuck is a foreshadow?
Anyway, Tichelle wants it back, and NA agrees to track it down as long as he's getting paid because, you know, he has absolutely no emotional attachment to anything. Or at least that is the picture he tries very hard to paint. It is a very Disgaea setup. You have a legitimate conflict including a rebellion and a young ruler trying to hold on to her kingdom, but the entire adventure is pushed forward by an argument over dessert.
You know I like my dessert first.
As someone who has never completed a Disgaea game, I have honestly never experienced a story quite like this. And you know what? I think I might be hooked. It is rare to play a game that commits this heavily to comedy, especially within the JRPG space. But there isn't much else to say about the story. It's super simple. Watching NA have these hilarious discussions about Flawn or just hearing his conversations with the rebels in general had me laughing out loud. That really doesn't happen very often. It honestly made me feel like I was watching a comedy anime, which is not something I usually get from the games I play. Oh, and there's one last thing I want to mention about the story. It is very short. I finished the main story with some grinding in about 10 to 11 hours. Without doing much grinding, I could easily see someone finishing it in about 6 to 7 hours. Now, once you complete the main story though, you can unlock extra content that really leans into the grind you would expect from a Disgaea game. So to clear all of it, you'll need to push NA well beyond level 500 and seriously beef up your equipment. So while the main story is brief, Disgaea fans who love the grind will still have plenty to do after the credits roll. When it comes to the presentation, I believe this might be the most contentious aspect of Disgaea Mayhem. With Disgaea being such a niche series, I can imagine how longtime fans are going to react to the graphics.
Oh no, I hate this.
So they're used to those sweet pixels across the tactical maps in the mainline games, but you cannot exactly have a pixelated grid map in a Musou style action game, so the series had to make the jump to 3D.
I'm attempting to break through to the third dimension.
Now visually, I think they did a great job with the stylized 3D anime aesthetic. In the mainline games, dialogue scenes usually feature static character art that shifts depending on the emotions being portrayed. Here, you get fully animated 3D models instead. I enjoyed seeing more physical comedy and emotion during those conversations, and the characters being able to move around and react to each other really helped sell everything else. But the game still balances the use of 3D scenes where the characters are moving with 3D scenes where they are static instead of using 2D art. I'm sure it's because they need to cut costs somewhere, and maybe they felt like the fans were kind of used to it. Either way, here's some examples.
Because I gained so much weight from eating flan. Huh? The flan in Super Duper is too delicious. My last health checkup was really bad. My blood sugar level is through the roof.
Zuck, I have made the perfect flan for you. It has 0 calories because it has a hole through the middle of it. I call it Zero Hole!
What the hell is she talking about? Does she really think he'll fall for some dumb kiddie trick like that?
At the same time, I do miss the high quality character art from the original games. The voice acting also does a great job of selling the ridiculous tone. The actors fully committed to every joke and over the top reaction, which makes the story feel like an anime comedy between each mission. It could have easily become annoying, but I found the cast charming throughout the game, and I'm glad they dubbed it. My biggest issue though is with the dialogue presentation happening during the levels. There are moments when you're so focused on fighting that you do not notice important conversations happening in the bottom left corner of the screen. None of that dialogue is voiced, so I missed plot points because I either didn't notice the conversation has started or was too busy fighting to even read it.
I can't pay attention to what I'm doing.
I don't know why they did it that way, but I really wish those moments were voiced. As for the battles, the presentation is pretty straightforward. Your skills are displayed in the bottom right corner, while your items and health sit on the left. The layout is easy to understand, and there is not much clutter until you start attacking groups of enemies. Once the action gets going though, damage numbers begin popping up everywhere. That's part of the fun of Disgaea, right? I did not notice any major performance drops on my PC, and there are plenty of graphical options to adjust, so you should be fine. Now on the Steam Deck, the game struggled occasionally, but lowering the settings fixed most of those issues. Disgaea Mayhem is not the most technically impressive game out there, but its presentation fits the personality of the series. It's colorful and fully committed to its ridiculous sense of humor, and for my first completed Disgaea game, it definitely got me hooked. Now let's get into the gameplay, because this is where Disgaea Mayhem separates itself from the rest of the series while keeping enough familiar elements for die-hard fans. As mentioned earlier, the game moves away from the wild tactical combat of the mainline entries and replaces it with equally wild action combat in the style of Dynasty Warriors. Unlike the giant maps you usually see in Dynasty Warriors though, battles here take place across much smaller stages. Most missions have you moving through a few sections, defeating a required number of enemies, and then taking on the boss at the end. A level took me between 4 to 6 minutes, so these missions are incredibly quick. At first I was a little put off because it felt different from any Musou style game I played before. Then I remembered that this is still Disgaea, and the entire point is to level up as much as possible, and you only gain levels after completing a stage, so the game is designed around replaying missions quickly and making the grind as painless as possible. And I appreciate that, because grinding through long levels repeatedly would probably break me.
I can't take any more. I can't do this. I cannot do this any more. I can't do it anymore!
The combat in this game is pretty easy to understand. You have the normal attacks, special skills, a guard, and a dash that can cancel you out of certain animations. If you've played a Musou style game, you know what to expect. It's not super complex, but the variety comes with the weapon types. You have 7 different kinds of weapons that have a distinct playstyle. I started off with the sword, but soon learned that the staff was OP. It basically summoned 8 or so orbs around you that you can then lock in and destroy your enemies with. It made mowing down enemies so much fun.
Say hello to my little friend!
That variety in weapon type was important because the missions can become repetitive. Most stages follow the same structure, so switching weapons helped keep the combat fresh as I unlocked better gear and stronger skills. Speaking of better gear, you also have the ability to make all your equipment stronger by entering the item world. Here you'll fight through stages inside the piece of equipment you choose. Now completing those stages improves the item and levels up NA greatly. Now NA can also recruit monsters and bring one into battle as a companion. These monsters fight automatically, but they can also use something called magic change to transform into some sort of weapon and give NA an attack. Reincarnation is also another major system in this game. It resets NA back to level 1 while letting him keep certain bonuses to your base stats. So every time you do that, you get stronger and stronger as you level up. You can also visit the Chara world, which plays out like a board game that you send your monsters to and lets you raise stats. Then there's the Dark Chocolate Assembly, where you propose builds that unlock bonuses or change parts of the game. I loved watching this mechanic, and every time they voted against me, I would choose the option to fight them.
I'm going to kill them all.
So yeah, I had a blast. The game also has this cheat shop you can unlock that lets you adjust enemy strength and reward rates, which helped with the grind. I would focus on XP when I was trying to get my level up, but then switch to item drops when I needed better equipment. All these systems feed into the same goal: make NA stronger, improve your gear, and watch the numbers become increasingly ridiculous. You can finish the story without mastering everything, but the post-game expects you to get your grind on. That is where the tougher battles and level cap of 9,999 comes into play. For someone who has never completed a Disgaea game before, this made the series easier to understand. The action combat keeps the grinding fast, while the progression systems give longtime fans plenty to work with after the story is finally over. So where did I land on Disgaea Mayhem? It's definitely not a perfect game, and when I first started playing, I wasn't sure how I felt about the way everything came together. The combat felt simple and the stages were definitely short, and I kept wondering whether the loop was going to hold my attention for very long. But the more I played, the more it started to kind of click. Running through the stages and leveling up NA, just going around improving my equipment and watching those numbers get way bigger, and it just became so addictive. But before I knew it, I was replaying the levels and grinding far more than I originally planned, especially on my Steam Deck on the couch. I have never been a huge fan of Disgaea, but this is the first game in the series I've actually finished. And somehow, this weird little action spin-off might end up being my gateway drug into the mainline games. So if you're a longtime fan, let me know in the comments which Disgaea game you think I should play next. And if you've always been curious about Disgaea but felt intimidated by tactical gameplay and all the systems that come with that, Disgaea Mayhem might be the best way to dip your toes into the series. It gives you the humor, the characters, and plenty of grinding, but wraps it all inside a much more approachable action game. And for longtime fans, I think there's still plenty to enjoy here, especially when it comes to story and character interactions. At the end of the day, it's just more Disgaea, just presented in a very different way. And thank you again to NIS America for providing me with an early review code. As always, subscribe and like the video if you love my content, and I will see you all on the next video.